So joining us on the show for another Zen Business Class, for a special edition Zen Business Class, we have from Inspire CA, Ben Walker. Ben, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me on today, Simon.
You're very welcome. How are you feeling about the current climate in Australia at the moment?
Yeah. Well, if you asked me a few weeks ago, I'd probably say not great, or I just wouldn't know what's coming. But I think me and a lot of other business owners and basically everyone in Australia might have been in just a bit of shock from what was going on. But my feeling is that shock has kind of subsided, which is great.
Mm.
And we're kind of getting used to this new normal of, social distancing and working from home and things like that. So, and I think a lot of the interactions I've had with business owners are actually quite positive, where we're realizing what's happened has happened, but we're here to get on with it, and that's really good.
Yeah, I agree. There's the way you've put that was spot on. I think my experience has been that initial shock of everything that's transpired in such a short period of time. People are coming through the other side, and like you said, it's almost experiencing the new level of normal. It's not going to be the same way it was, and there's still a level of intrepidation, but it's a lot less panic and a lot less fear kicking on at the moment. So it's good to see. It's good to see. So hey, I'm looking forward to having you on the show today to share a little bit about the stimulus packages that the government have provided for small to medium-sized companies in Australia, and hoping that you could demystify and translate into common language what they mean and how they can benefit the listeners and the viewers of the show. So I jumped on the government website. I've been obviously on there a few times over the last couple of weeks, and I've noticed that there's 4 specific packages or incentives. We've got a job keeper, a boosting cash flow for employers, an instant asset write-off, and a backing business investment. So I'm wondering if we could maybe start with the job keeper initiative, and you could share a little bit about who that's for, who's eligible, and how people go about that.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, so the government has actually announced almost like 3 rounds of stimulus packages. Or they did one on the 12th of March, and they basically added to that as the situation's gotten worse, or they found it more and had new knowledge. So far, the total stimulus package adds up to $320 billion,
Hmm.
which is an exceptional amount of money.
Mm.
And in terms of the Job Keeper program, I think this is such an awesome one, and it was only released literally last week on Monday. So we're only sort of this is our 8th day into knowing even about the Job Keeper program. And keep in mind that there's a lot of misinformation at the moment about what businesses are entitled to and who gets what, and it's quite frustrating. But even the Treasury and the ATO themselves have only been releasing certain information. Literally, we even know more as of yesterday, and they did a lot over
Yeah.
the weekend to update it. But the JobKeeper program is basically a payment of $1,500 a fortnight, and that's before tax. And that's for eligible employees, or the payments made to the business owner to pay to the eligible employee, so that they can keep them employed. So the goal is literally what's written on the tin. It's for the job to be kept, job keeper program, and so the businesses are being encouraged to just pay them something rather than making them redundant or firing them or standing them down without any pay. So it's a way that the employees can get a little bit of cash flow, and that on the other side of this, almost like business hibernation, we can go back to business as usual with the team that we had. So that's kind of a bit of an overview of the Job Keeper.
Yeah, nice. And I think it's a really smart move for post business hibernation.
Mm.
When you think about what it takes to hire, train,
Mm.
upskill, develop the team players, to be able to have them, their employment sustained through this so that we can get back up and running and back to full steam ahead on the other side of it. I think it's a very clever move, very wise move, and something to take advantage of for sure.
Mm.
Eligibility on that, Ben?
Yeah. So with in terms of eligibility, you've got to have as a business, you have to be eligible, and there's certain dates that you've got to have had people employed from. If memory serves me well, I think it's the 1st of March.
Okay.
So if you had those employees at the 1st of March, then they're included. And it includes permanent part-time and full-time people and casuals that you've had with your business for more than 12 months. So they're sort of broad key eligibility of your employees. Also, as the business owner, regardless of your business structure now that we've found out, you're also eligible. So if you're running your business as a sole trader, company or trust or partnership, you should be eligible at least in some part for this JobKeeper payment. Now, where you've got you and your spouse in business, that's where you might not get one each. The rules are written so that it's only one director gets it, or if you're running as a trust, only one beneficiary gets access to it. Or if you're in a partnership, then only one partner gets it, not both. So there are some limitations around that, but yeah, it's pretty exciting. And from the business perspective, to be eligible as a business, you've got to have a 30% decrease, or even an anticipated 30% decrease in your turnover. So as a result of this coronavirus.
Okay, interesting. Interesting. Great. I think, as I said, I think this is out of, I think these first two that we're going to talk about are absolute lifeblood for businesses, which brings me to the next one, which is the boosting cash flow for employers incentive, which I think was one of the first, part of the first stimulus package. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this was released initially on the 12th of March, and then they revamped it, or they basically made it so much bigger. So I can't remember what the first figures was, but this incentive is up to $100,000 per business. That is six figures.
Wow. Wow.
It's a great amount of money. Now, it applies to you if you employ people. So it's another incentive that the government's giving to businesses who employ, again to keep the stress off the employers, to be able to provide or to get the business to the other side of this. And how it's calculated is, and it's all administered through the when you lodge your business activity statements, or BASs. And the payment is a minimum of 10 grand up to a maximum of 50K for March through to June on your BAS. So there's 4 different months. And then that 10 to 50K repeats in the following 4 months. So July, August, September, October. So we've got 2 different time periods where this thing will pay over. And how you calculate the numbers on it is, it's basically on your BAS, it's a credit of your pay-as-you-go withholding, which is the amount of money that you withhold from your employees' wages. So let's say you're paying someone $1,000 a week, but you're withholding tax of $200. Well, you won't have to pay that $200 in the BAS. Up to, like if you're a big employer, you might hit the maximum, but up to a maximum of 50K in that 4-month period.
Yeah, fantastic. And now, is that the same incentive that the apprentices fall under? Or is that something different again?
That's something different again, actually. So that's. I think the apprentice one is if you've got apprentices, and there's something that they need to be registered with for them to actually be apprentices. It can't just be someone who's new at the job.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a bit of a trick. And there's I think it's 50% of their wages up to 21 grand, and that's over 9 months from January through to September this year. So I don't know why these date ranges are different, but we're not here to set the rules, are we?
No, that's right. And nor complain about it. I mean, really, this is really a bonus. And we talk about free enterprise and being an entrepreneur, going into business. You are taking the risk, you are fielding the risk, and for most part, government incentives or government bailouts, can be considered as a bonus rather than a given. So I think there's an opportunity to be grateful for whatever comes.
Yeah,
just my personal opinion, anyway.
Absolutely, and I operate off the principle that no one owes you anything, and if that includes government. I'm not here to just have my hand out. I got to work for it, and all of this stuff. It just is. It's not in my philosophy, it's not actually needed. It absolutely is there to help. and to and I reckon it's actually going to the right place. It's going to businesses to keep people employed, so we don't have these big social messes and unemployment and all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah, I agree. I agree. All right, let's talk about instant asset write-off. I think there's been a shift, quite a substantial shift. I mean, instant asset write-off's been around for a while,
yeah,
but I think they've boosted the amount. Is that correct?
that's right. So so the government, even over the last over 10 years, they've played around with the instant asset write-off amount, like how much you can buy an asset for and claim it in the first year. Now, remember, it used to be $1,000. And so if you go and buy a MacBook Pro, you have to write that MacBook off over, I think, 3 years for a laptop. So you've got to claim it over 3 years. But they increased that instant asset write-off to, it's been $6,000, I remember. At the moment, it's $30,000,
Yeah,
which
wow.
is already exceptionally high. Now, I think it was from the 12th of March to the 30th of June 2020, you can spend up to 150K and claim that asset in the year that you bought it. Now, I might just say as well, the asset needs to be, you can only claim the percentage that you use that thing for business. So,
Right.
and like, let's say a car that I used half and half, I can only claim half the car. And if it is a car, it's still subject to your depreciation limits on a car. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to go and buy a 7 Series Beamer. Not quite, because there's a maximum you can on that. But if you're going to buy a truck that's 120K or 150K, then you can do that if it's a commercial vehicle. Like if you're a tradie, then that makes perfect sense. And because it's a commercial vehicle and it's a load carrying thing rather than a people carrying thing, then that's where the sort of just the difference
Differentiation is. Yeah, and I've heard you mention before that only spend the cash, obviously, guys, if it's there to be spent.
Yes.
Yeah, make sure that you're being responsible with your cash. And I might actually just spend a little bit of time after this next question to talk about managing cash flow, if that's okay. Okay, cool. So that's instant asset write-off. What
Yeah.
about backing business investment?
So the backing business investment is actually an extension, I believe, on this depreciation that we just spoke about. So this applies kind of after 30 June 2020, and it's for, or I think it even applies now, but it's for assets more than 150K. So yeah, there's not many people who are going to be dropping 400 grand on a piece of equipment apart from maybe a manufacturer. So this extends right through to 30 June 2021. And it says if you can't claim the instant asset write-off for whatever value that is, whether it's 30K or 150K, or it goes back to $1,000, then you can claim 50% of the asset up front, whatever you buy, and then it goes back to the normal rules after that. So if it's a car, for instance, then we write it off 30% a year. Or most small business assets, you can write off 30% a year.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so just jumping over into cash flow. Cash is king at the best of times. It's even more so in the challenging times. What advice or recommendations do you have for the listeners and the viewers to manage cash flow at this period of time?
Yeah, so cash is the lifeblood of a business. And so we got to make sure that we've got enough coming in and not too much going out. So imagine in versus out. Now, if our in is coming down because we're getting less sales or we've had to shut our doors, then we need to manage what's going out to make sure that it's not more than what's coming in, or as best we can to get through this this window. And if we're looking at what's going out, I kind of divide them into two different sections. A business has variable costs, and those costs vary depending on how much they sell. So if we think like a fruit and veggie shop, the more fruit and veggies they sell, the more that they need to buy from their suppliers. But if we compare that to a fixed cost of the fruit and veggie shop's rent, they've got to pay rent regardless of how much they sell. So it's like it would rarely change month to month. And so what we need to focus on as business owners is, let's keep an eye on variable costs, and they should go down if your revenue goes down, but let's manage the fixed costs. So we've had a lot of clients who have needed to go and have a conversation with their landlord to make sure that they're working collaboratively to get a win-win there. also landlords could go to their bank and get some relief there. So we've seen a lot of great things happen where we've even seen three-month rent-free periods, 6 months at half rent. But yeah, that's a really big thing that I think you need to have a conversation about if you're in that category. And a big one, which there's a few incentives like what we've spoken about, the JobKeeper and the credit on your BAS to help with the fixed costs you might have with team members as well. So team and rent are usually two of the biggest bills. So there's help with the landlords if you go and talk to them, and also the government stimulus packages have done a lot with the fixed costs around employees.
Yeah, great. And Ben, what advice would you give in general as a CA for small to medium sized businesses right now, other than might not even be financial advice? What recommendations could you make?
Yeah, so there's kind of two that come to mind. The first one is make sure you have a plan for cash flow. And so I know we were just speaking about it, but actually go and, if you don't already have a budget or a forecast, make sure you go and do that for the next 3 to 6 months. We've been helping our clients with this sort of thing and doing like an emergency meeting with our clients. And we answer a question for them, which basically says, when are you going to run out of money? We had a client late last week where the answer to hers was September. So if nothing else changes, if her sales have dropped, she's in hospitality, but she's still allowed to do takeaway. So if she sort of keeps as she is, she's going to run out of money in September. And knowing that for her has peace of mind that she's fine for June, July. It's getting a bit hairy August, September, but she might be able to organise some other things before then to help her extend that date even further.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I know it sounds counterintuitive, like it really does. It's better to know when D-Day is than the uncertainty of knowing when you run out of cash, and because there is greater levels of anxiety with that lack of certainty than there is with, at least when you've got a due date and you go, right, look, this is when we're out of cash. At least then you can take some actions, you can respond to it accordingly. And one of our favorite sayings on the show is, you can't deal with what could be until you deal with what is, and the brutal reality of that. So yeah, sage advice there. And the second piece, second bit of advice?
Yeah, the second one there is make sure you keep communicating with key people, to do with your business. And now, to me, that's clients and team. So have you communicated to your clients that your business as usual if you've still got your doors open? Or are you working from home? And what does that mean for clients? And then on the other hand, you've got team. Now, as business owners, we've got this huge responsibility, we feel, or I feel, for my own family, but it also extends to the families of the people that we employ. And they've got their own stresses and challenges throughout this time as well. And one of them could be fearing job security. And so just like we're talking about certainty around cash flow, work out what's happening with your team. Now, it's probably going to end in one of maybe 2 or 3 ways, which is standing them down or making them redundant or firing them for whatever reason, and there's literally nothing to do with your business after that point. Or you're going to keep them on. It's business as usual. They're not going to get pay cuts. It literally is. There's like, we didn't even know there was a virus here. That's if you're in fruit and veggies or that sort of thing, or toilet paper manufacturing, that'll be you. And you might have somewhere in the middle where you might have a mutual agreement for some other outcome with your team. What I guess you need to reinforce with them, and as early as possible, is what's happening. Are they losing their job? Cool. Then they can go and move on and deal with that. Or is it business as usual? Cool. Take the relief off, or their worry off their shoulders, and so they can get on and be productive in what they're doing. So
yeah, really good. Really good. And again, it's what I'm hearing in that is communicate early, communicate often, and it rings true with people looking for right now. They're looking for connection and direction.
Yeah.
Looking for that connection and direction, and it's a quote from a good friend of ours of the show, Jacob Aldridge. So yeah, connection and direction. Awesome, Ben, mate. Thank you for your time. How can people stay in touch with you and maybe learn a bit more about what you're sharing out there in the marketplace, especially around the coronavirus?
Yeah. So we've actually, in the last couple of weeks, our team and I have put together a online online course, or basically we've put a whole heap of resources in um, for like free access to webinar recordings and things like that, where you can go and watch our stimulus package run throughs, and we talk to a mortgage broker about what the banks are offering, employment lawyers about, how do you handle standing down and what that word even means. I hardly knew what it was until about 3 weeks ago.
No, yeah, neither did I.
And then
Neither
it
did
was
I.
sitting in contracts all this time. But anyway,
Yeah.
we've got a whole heap of resources, and you can access that at learning.benwalker.com. So that's our e-learning platform. Otherwise, I'm happy to give my contact details to Simon to share if you're listening, and feel free to shoot an email through to me, or give our office a call, and
Yeah, perfect. And I'll leave the link. I'll insert the link under the video, as well as the episodes, whatever platform you're listening to or watching this on right now. So I'll make sure there's a link
awesome
there. So Ben, I appreciate your time and your wisdom, mate, and also I appreciate all the effort that you're putting into making a difference and empowering the small to medium size enterprise in Australia. So thanks for all the great work that you're doing out there in the marketplace.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Simon. Really appreciate that. And thanks for having me on.